from high school and was just accepted by King's College London.
Oh.
And a grandson who graduated from middle school.
Wow.
So 30 hours later, here I am.
That's amazing.
In your part of the world too.
Oh, are you? Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm actually calling from the Marriott because we have the ISSCR meeting, the stem cells meeting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're in San Francisco?
Yes.
Ah. Well, I was going to say, come visit us, but maybe you've got work to do.
I've got work to do. Next time, though, I'd love to.
All right. Who else is on from AlphaMed?
Hi, John. It's Tina.
Hi, Tina. I'm just going to wait another minute, but I think you two. Oh, well, we've got one more person who just signed in. Good. Okay. I thought that maybe you two were the only ones who are going to be doing this session, but it looks like we've got a couple of others. Cool.
Oh, good.
Good. Otherwise, we just talk about AlphaMed Press the whole time. Tina, what part of the country are you in? Are you at home base?
I am. I'm still here in North Carolina.
All right. Let's just give it one more minute, and because I see
okay.
Nandini and Julie Stoner have signed in.
And what are Julie's journals?
Julie is with ASBMB.
Okay.
It looks like her microphone isn't active yet.
We just dialed in with our phone.
Yeah. I was just having such a chore yesterday. I was on a speakerphone to speakerphone call, and it was so frustrating because there was just no way for us to have a real conversation. We just had to each wait for the other person to stop talking.
Yeah.
And it was just, all right. I am going to, let me send a note. Julie Stoner, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right. I didn't see. And
I called in on the line, though.
Okay, it's all good. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen and hope that you see the right screen. Always exciting when it isn't. All right.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. No, I'm seeing the wrong one. I can swap those. Okay, now we're good. All right, great. Well, thank you guys. Oh, we have 2 more people signing in. What a surprise. I didn't do a registration for this event. It just seemed like too much overhead for all of us. And so I'm wondering who's going to be in this one. Let's wait another minute. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate people being willing to do this as a webinar because you really couldn't all make the session at either Stanford or London, and I'm just really glad to be able to get the feedback on where we've been and where we're going. Since it's a relatively small group, please just go ahead and interrupt at any point, just as if we were all in the same room. And if for some reason through the curse of speakerphones you can't interrupt me, just put something in the chat box, and I'll see it, or my colleague Kevin John Black, who's the product manager for Impact Vizor, will be able to see it and will flag me down to stop talking. All right.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting when, as you probably know, HighWIre did a recent business value map exercise with our publishers. And it was pretty interesting to see how the top 6 items that came up in the business value map aligned with what we think we're doing with Visors in general and Impact Vizor in particular. The very top item, that is 2/3 of the publishers named attract and retain authors in their top 3. That's what it means for it to be on this list. And that is the reason that we're going on now. We've reprioritized some things, and we're going to be building a Visor, an Impact Vizor component to figure out how to identify the right authors to attract and retain. So this business value map really does have an effect on driving what we do. The other ones, I think, on increasing impact and making data-driven decisions are probably pretty obvious. So I'm going to go over these topics in this meeting. There's probably only about 1 slide each. So even though this looks like, oh my God, we're going to do 13 items, it'll take forever. That shouldn't be the case. But for that reason, I especially want to encourage you to interrupt anytime you have something you'd like to bring up. The Visor rollout, we did 7 Visors in through the second half of 2015. That was exhausting. We basically released 1 a month after June, and right now we're working on a different set of capabilities, and I'd like to just review for you those. We've now put in regular updates happening to articles and citations. This happens pretty much the first week of every month. We go off and look in your content to see which are the new articles, and we go off and look in citation databases to find which are the new citations. Second, we added Mendeley throughout the system. Pretty much anywhere you can find citation information, you can also find Mendeley information. And the reason we did this is pretty important. Citations, as aggressively as we went after getting early sources of citations, such as with Crossref, citations, even in the best case, take about 6 months to happen after an article is published, and typically 12 months or 18 months after. So even doing the best job we can with citations, there's still a lag time before you can discover which are going to be your well-cited articles. Well, what we found is that there is a moderate correlation between Mendeley saves and citations, eventual citations. And the nice thing is Mendeley saves pretty much happen when an article is published. So what I'd encourage you, if you're looking in particular to find indications of early citation merit in your content, look for articles that are well saved, that is high saves in Mendeley. And you can do this in any number of the viewers. I can do a demo if we have some time, or if you wonder how to do that, just send me an email, and KJ and I will do a demo for you. But you can do this in the hot article tracker. Instead of tracking citations, you can track Mendeley saves, or you can in the ACU, the correlator of citations and usage. You can see Mendeley saves, citations, and PDF downloads all together on the same line. So I really want to encourage you to consider that. In some disciplines, there's much more use of Mendeley than in others. So it might be pretty sparse data in some fields, but in others, it's not. At the bottom of the page, you see noted faculty of 1,000. We've just negotiated an agreement. It's not yet all signed and sealed, but negotiated an agreement with faculty of 1,000 to pull in data about faculty of 1,000 recommendations. I think this is going to be every bit as good as Mendeley in identifying likely highly cited papers. It will probably be even better than Mendeley in the sense that a faculty of 1,000 recommendation is likely to be a pretty good indicator. As soon as we have the data in-house, I'll do the analysis, and if there is a correlation, I will certainly let you know. I'll also let you know once the data is available. The third bullet down, there is now an admin panel that you can use to upload new files, foam files or rejected article files. So you don't need to send me, KJ, or Neil uploads files anymore. You can do this in an admin panel. Kevin John has written documentation and has made it available. We can get you all usernames and passwords so that you can do this. The nice thing about being able to do this directly without involving us is that if you are using foam files, the files of additional metadata, this means that you can change your custom fields anytime you want, as rapidly as you want. You do not have to wait for us to wake up here on the West Coast and load a file and write you back and so on. More or less happens in real time. There is some new documentation. If you look in the Impact Vizor forum, the documentation is now sticky at the top of the forum. If you go to that forum, the top 6 or 8 items will be the documentation. 3 of the new documents are listed right here. There's a document on downloading and exporting. While it's really simple to do, exporting, say, to Excel files, there's a technique involved. And once you know the technique, you'll just say, oh, you know, I wish it were a simpler thing. It's like 5 or 6 clicks to do, but it's really simple. It had to be documented, though. The next is there's an easy view document for the SPA. Well, the SPA turns out to be more detailed than everything else, and so we wrote a document that was just easier to look at than the PowerPoint slide deck. And finally, there's a quick start guide. I don't know about you, but I can tell you, as familiar as I am with every bit of Impact Vizor, there are times when I think, which of the viewers is that particular graphic in? And I can't remember. So we wrote a quick start guide. It's a picture of every viewer, and next to the picture it tells you where it is. You can even click on it. So the quick start guide, I just recommend you, if you're a regular user, print it out, just keep it around. We're also doing use case interviews to learn what some of you are doing with Impact Vizor, and there have been some interesting use cases that I had not anticipated, which is great. And finally, we've done rollouts for editors-in-chief and associate editors for 2 of the societies using Impact Vizor. The ASBMB has rolled it out to the JBC's associate editors, which is a group of over 20 people, and ASM has rolled it out to its editors-in-chief, which is a group of, I think, about a dozen people. And then upcoming through the rest of the year, we have, as I mentioned, faculty of 1,000. We have alerts coming, and the author prospector is a new tool we'll be developing. I'll be talking about those later. So any questions on anything 2016 to date?
John, I just wanted to say I think it's great that you're doing that quick start guide. That will be so helpful.
I know. It was at the point where I realized that I could not remember everything myself. I thought, oh my God, what about the rest of the people who do not use this every day? So I was really glad KJ was willing to do it because it took some care. It's in the forum. Oh, I should mention, by the way, what we found in my call an hour ago with one of the Impact Visor users. I found that when we migrated to the new software for the community forum, some people lost access. Their usernames are still recognized, but their passwords are not. If that's the case for you, try logging into the forum. If you can't get in, just send me an email or send KJ an email and we'll get it fixed. We are relying on the forum as a way of keeping all of you up to date.
Mm-hmm. So one more question before we are on that page. How long does it take to do an editor rollout? I mean, how much advance time do you need?
Just enough time to schedule the meeting really for me to do an overview with them. In both of these cases, and you'd have to decide in your own case whether this is true or not. The publisher decided that everybody can use one username and password. In other words, it was okay for the ASM editor for one of their journals to see the information in the other journals. And as long as that's okay with you, then you can use your same username and password. There's nothing that limits it. If instead you needed people to have different usernames and passwords because you wanted to partition the information, there we need a couple days to set it up. There is an extra cost because we have to license more software for you, but we can do that. Just give us 2 weeks notice on that. But otherwise, I'm glad to do a walkthrough with editors to show them the software, to do some use cases, whatever you'd like to do. That's just all part of what we're doing. So just let's schedule a meeting to do that.
Thank you.
In my experience, in pretty much every group of, say, a dozen editors, there's somebody who is really a data geek and wants to get at this data. The other 11 just want somebody to do it for them, and that's
yeah.
All right. So just this is a reminder. It is now very easy for us to add journals to Impact Vizor for you. Many Impact Vizor publishers had us set it up with only 2 or 3 of your journals. Some of you have a dozen journals. If you'd like us to add the rest, it's pretty easy to do. There is a cost. It's not that much. You can judge that. Just you can let me or your account manager know, and we'll turn around a proposal overnight to you to let you know about the cost. The cost varies somewhat depending on the impact factor of the title. If you have a new journal, that is a journal that does not yet have an impact factor, please ask us to add it to Impact Vizor. It would surprise you how cheap it is, like free. It's just, let us do that for you. The last of the major bullets here about adding cohort comparator titles. Many of you have asked us to add 1, 2, or 3. Some of you have had us add 6, 8, or 10 cohort titles. It's easy to do. It's relatively inexpensive. It does vary, again, by impact factor. But impact factor of 6 or lower is really cheap. So if you're thinking about this, just have us put together a proposal. You can take a look at it and say, yeah, well, let's add these 3, but not those 3. Again, it's easy to do. We can turn it around in a few days. And it's certainly something that people are finding good use for. Any questions on this before I go on? Now, just a few topics. I've already talked quite a bit about the admin controls, and so I won't comment further on that. The documentation on it is in the community forum now. What's it called? Managing?
It's the manager.
The Visor Manager, I think, is the heading in the forum. And again, you can get username and password from KJ. Second, I just want to mention that I've mentioned this a couple of times on the forum. I've mentioned it in a number of conversations. One of the really important things to do, especially to use the SPA, the Section Performance Analyzer, is to have a good understanding of which of your sections Thomson Reuters counts as source sections or citable sections. And this is something that they keep internally at Thomson Reuters in something they call an authority file. And you can get a copy of your authority file. We've worked out, it took a couple of months, but we worked out how to get this from Thomson Reuters very cleanly. There's actually an email template that you mail to a fellow named Tom Giavarella at Thomson Reuters. Kevin John can send you the template to do this, and it'll take them 1 to 3 months to turn it around. When you get the information, just send it to us. Thomson Reuters has asked us if you would request it rather than HighWIre requesting it for you. And I agree with that. They should be providing information about your journals to you, not to us. You just then forward it on to us. Any questions about the authority file? All right. One of the things that once we have the authority files, one of the things we want to do with them is, of course, we're going to program them into the Section Performance Analyzer for you so that it will know, well, actually, you're going to program it in. We'll give you a set of pop-ups to use to program it in. But another thing that we'll be able to do with this is if you start publishing new sections, you and we will be able to alert Thomson Reuters that they need to update their authority file. This turns out to be one of the major sources of error in impact factors each year is the authority file that Thomson Reuters has is not up to date with your latest publishing activity. And it can be really surprising when that happens. Oh, for example, you start publishing supplements and you think of them as not being counted, and Thomson Reuters does. Or you start publishing something that, meeting abstracts, and you're sure they're not going to be counted. Well, somebody at Thomson Reuters doesn't know that, and they go ahead and start counting them, and it can just lead to some really bad results. But we can capture this, and one of the ideas we've exchanged with Thomson Reuters is if we can do this early in each year, verify that the authority file is accurate and up to date, then they can be pretty sure that your impact factor, when it's released in June, will be accurate as opposed to draft. All right.
And what happens, John, if we get the authority file and we realize that they weren't up to date? Will Thomson Reuters go back and make adjustments?
Yes, they will. Well, in my experience, they will. There is a definite negotiation process that goes on. And they have to agree with you that their view is not correct. In cases where there's a new section and they just don't have it listed, then I think that's pretty clear that, okay, they need to get it properly evaluated. The more subtle case is where you find that there's something in the authority file that they say is citable, and you say, wait a minute, that makes no sense. I mean, we actually got an authority file once that listed errata as citable. And it was like, there's no way. It was simply an error. And those are easy ones to catch. But there might be times where you'll find commentaries. For example, you think your commentaries are not citable and they think they are, and that's where you get into the negotiation process.
Yeah, that was exactly the topic I was thinking of, because I see a lot of journals doing this, and we're among them, especially with the oncologists, where we do try to do editorials and commentaries, accompanying commentaries. And it's hard to know, whether they're going to count those in the or not. So
yeah,
okay, good.
I think when you get into the discussion with them, it gets clarified. But when you first introduce the section, that's when they don't know what your intention is. They might see only 3 or 4 articles in that section and make a decision based on very little data.
Oh, that's good to know.
So these are the use cases that we built Impact Vizor around, and you've all seen this list. Nothing, I hope, surprising here. What I found interesting was to look at the use cases that we've seen since the original development of Impact Vizor. I've put in bold the set that were particularly surprising. We have one journal that was thinking, I don't know that they've actually implemented this, but it was one of the ideas they had, is to take the most cited articles that an editor rejected, pull that out of the rejected article tracker, and the least cited articles that the editor accepted, put them together into an email and send them to the editor responsible. I thought that was pretty interesting, not very subtle. You have to think about how that will work with your editors. Number 5 is the case that I just described of doing a quality review for the authority file. One journal used the Impact Vizor to study submission declines. Another journal is using a custom field of the country of the corresponding author to look at impact patterns by country, and it's quite surprising. It turned out their best cited articles come from Indonesia. Who would have guessed that? It's only like 4 or 5 articles, but they're clearly more cited than some others. Author alerting. 9 and 10 are both kind of interesting. They're cases where rather than using Impact Vizor for decision making, you're using it for marketing, essentially, to be able to talk to your best authors about their articles, or to be able to talk to the editors or to your community in general about the top cited and saved and downloaded articles. And then finally, I've already mentioned that ASBMB and ASM have rolled out, number 12, have rolled out access to their editors. If you have other use cases that you've come up with, things that you've done, and it doesn't have to be very sophisticated, it can be really simple stuff, I'd like to know about it. We're trying to put together sort of a casebook that says, look, these are some things people have tried, and we think you'd be interested in hearing what some other people have tried. So let me know if you have some other examples. Now we're looking at what's ahead in 2016. And this is not all strictly about Impact Vizor, but there are other visors that we're developing as well. And so let me go through these one at a time and let you know which ones are part of Impact Vizor and which ones are separate. We are now working on Usage Visor. We expect to roll it out sometime in August. Quite a few of you, not necessarily people on the phone, but Quite a few Impact Vizor customers have been part of talking to me about your interest in Usage Visor. It's pulling in article level usage, institutional usage, and turnaway usage all together. We're using a very similar framework to the one for Usage Visor. To the one for Impact Vizor. And if you have Impact Vizor already, the two will just appear merged together. In other words, you'll just see usage information accessible along with citation information, so that you don't end up with two tools. You just have everything integrated. We're planning to have very special pricing for Impact Vizor customers for this additional visor. And I think you'll find it very affordable. The second on the list is alerts. This is part of Impact Vizor. And in fact, alerts will be part of all visors going forward. I'm going to talk about alerts in the next slide. So I'll focus in on that. But we expect to roll this out sometime this summer. We've had, it's kind of interesting, the user group meeting at Stanford. We didn't talk much about alerts, but at the user group meeting in London, that's all they talked about, and lots of good feedback on alerts. So stay tuned for the next slide. This will be included with Impact Vizor. Social Visor is the next one after Usage Visor and alerts. We expect to have this out late summer. We have now negotiated an agreement with Altmetric to access their data for this. What it will require for the late summer release is that you license Altmetric's Explorer product. This is a separate product. It's an add-on, if you will, to the widget, the donut. It's not a very expensive add-on, they tell me, but I don't get the pricing. What you do is you license the Explorer. Many of you already have licensed it. You license it, you let us know, and then we can turn on Social Visor for you. It will give you access essentially to Impact Vizor-like tools for all the pieces, all the subcomponents of what Altmetric monitors. So you'll be able to look at blogs versus tweets versus Facebook, and so on. Late this fall, depending on timing with Crossref, we will enable something called Crossref Event Tracker, and then you won't need to have Altmetric Explorer. This will have fewer sources, considerably fewer sources than Altmetric has, but they will be some important ones. And HighWIre is already licensing the event tracker for you. So a question came about if you don't have the donut, can you still get Altmetric Explorer? Yes, in fact, you can. It's pretty interesting. We found there are a modest number of publishers who do not want the public donut showing up on their website, so they don't have us integrate that, but they do want to have access to the Altmetric data. And yes, you can license the Explorer separately. Next is about the author prospector. I mentioned at the very beginning that attracting and retaining authors came out as the #1 item in the business value map. And for this reason, we've moved up author prospector. We already had usage and Social Visor and alerts work underway. Author prospector, we're now starting the work. I am starting interviews with publishers who indicated they were interested in talking about how this should work. So if you have someone on your editorial staff who does author prospecting. In other words, who's already figuring out which authors should we be talking to, either current authors or not current authors. I would be glad to talk to them if you would like their input included in this. Please send me an email. Send me an email today or tomorrow if you can. I'm starting the interviews with those people later this week. I've got a good set of people, but I'm always glad to talk to others. We're targeting this for some kind of a pilot late this summer, maybe early fall, and releasing this in the fall. This will be included as part of Impact Vizor as we plan now. There's a possibility that we're going to have to license some other data sources. Right now, I don't know that. If I do, we'll let you know. But the plan is that it's included as part of Impact Vizor. So it would be an 8th tool in the Impact Vizor suite. And then last on the list is Prospect Vizor. And this is about institutional prospecting. That is looking for new subscribers, institutional subscribers. We'll be building this probably in the fall and the winter. We have to finish some data warehouse software to do that, and then we probably release it. My guess is in April 1st. So I guess that's not winter. At least that's not winter here. That's almost spring. And this is another one where there will be very special pricing for Impact Vizor customers. That is, if you have Impact Vizor, Prospect Vizor will be pretty inexpensive. Any questions on this before I go on to talk specifically about alerts? Or comments, not just.
Yeah, we're very interested in the author prospectors, so we'll get back to you about that.
Okay.
That could be very helpful.
And if you would just send me the email addresses of the people who would be worth me talking to, and let them know that I'm going to be writing them, so that, if it's the editor-in-chief of one of your journals, that person doesn't get this crazy call from someone named John Sack. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, actually, timing is perfect because I'm seeing this editor tomorrow here in San Francisco.
Excellent.
So I can let them know.
Good. If you send me an email address when you've talked to him, I will get him an invite immediately to have a conversation.
Great.
Anybody else who's got someone they would think I should talk to, I'd be really glad to do that. I've got several executive editors, a recruiting editor, a couple of editors in chief. So I'm looking forward to the interviews, which is I think they start on Friday. All right. Anybody else with questions or comments on what you see here on the roadmap? All right. Now alerts. Alerts, as I said, turned out to be a big interest, and I think it's for two reasons, the use cases here. Many of you who have an interest in the information in Impact Vizor don't have time to go to Impact Vizor and use it. So what you'd like is to have certain trigger conditions that cause information to come to you. So, for example, tell me whenever an article has more than 20 citations. Tell me whenever an article's number of citations doubles in a month. Those kinds of things can be done. Another is one of the use cases that came up in London was send me the managing editor or the marketing director a set of information on certain triggers so that I can format it and send it on to the authors on a paper. In other words, I want to use it as part of my retention for the most important authors. And we've worked out how to do that and so on. We've also worked out that a way that it's possible for these alerts to go to people who do not themselves have access to Impact Vizor. In other words, they'll be able to see the information and get some interactivity, but they won't be able to go and browse around quite the way those of you with the full username and password can. So I'd be interested in hearing from you about ideas you have for alerts. Where is it now where you wish you had information delivered to you rather than having to go look it up?
Something that that we do is we like to look at how editors are doing, and so being able, if we could be sent, the editors, that papers that were handled by editors that were highly cited in a particular time period. That was
Can you hold on a second, Julie?
Sure.
Hold on. I need to.
Today's session is
Just going to get. Sorry about that. Something else on my machine just started talking. I don't know whether you guys could hear it, but I sure could, and it was kind of embarrassing.
No problem.
Okay.
I was just saying.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, no, I was saying that it'd be helpful to have the most highly cited articles by associate editor who handled them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then my question was how. Maybe you haven't ironed this out yet, but how would this be sent? Would they be like attachments of the data?
I think it's what it'll be is an email that has a link in it. The email will describe what the link contains, and when you click on the link, it will bring up a web page that will have the information on it. I think
okay.
That's the way it has to work. So it won't be just a visual attachment. It will have some interactivity. But let me check on that. In other words, I don't think it's a PDF. It's not a flat file. It's actually something you can work with.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Other suggestions that come to mind from anyone? All right. Thanks. Moving along. So now a sort of open forum. These are some of my questions to you. Any suggestions, anything in general, any feedback, whether on these questions or anything else. Things where you'd like us to help in some way by writing something up, by changing something, anything you have to contribute to the general information of others, any new tools, are there barriers? Those are my general questions, but let me know what your feedback is.
Could you just explain again a little bit more what the institution prospector is?
Sure.
Because I don't really work with subscriptions, so I'm just not as well versed in how that they would use, our subscriptions folks would use that information.
Sure. So what it provides, so there are two pieces of this. Let me go back to a couple of slides. All right. So the way there are a couple of things that institutional marketing and salespeople do. One of the things that they want to do is make sure that customers who have paid have access. and they want to make sure that the customers who have paid are using their access. And then they also want to identify new, potentially new subscribers. And so part of Usage Visor is going to give them much of this information. A part of Prospect Visor is going to give them even more of it. So let me describe that briefly. I could, well, if we had a few more minutes, I'd do a demo, but let's not. Many of you probably are aware that you get counter reports now that have information about institutional data in institutional usage. But that data can be pretty hard to use, especially in summary. It's very much institution by institution. So what we'll be doing in the Usage Visor is pulling all this information in, all of the institutional usage information in, so that you'll be able to slice and dice it and look for patterns in the usage, look at types of institutions and how their usage is changing, and you'll be able to get alerts. So for instance, alert me if an institution's usage goes to 0. Alert me if an institution's usage doubles. It could be time to reprice something, for example, if their usage suddenly mushrooms. So that's that. You know, in the case of an institution usage going to 0, well, that could be an issue that somehow they've changed IP addresses and didn't tell you, or it could be a potential that they're going to cancel. So that might be a reason to involve customer service or marketing. There's also another type of institutional usage we'll be pulling in, which is called turnaway usage. And this is the case when a non-subscribing institution attempts to use the site. And there we can capture the fact that they tried to get information but couldn't. And that can be useful for prospecting. In other words, if there's enough usage, it might be good to convince a librarian that they should subscribe. And eventually what we want to do, but we won't be doing that for Usage Visor this summer, is bring in information about your authors matching up to your institutions, and so that you can go to a librarian and say, you know, we've published 10 papers this year with authors from your institution. Perhaps you should subscribe. You clearly have academic program related to our publication. That turns out to be, based on my interviews with librarians, more convincing than usage information is authorship. So we're going to be doing that with Prospect Visor is the plan right now. So we'll pull that in for this tool that's coming next year.
Okay.
So that's what prospecting is about. You can basically prospect by institution, prospect by journal, or prospect by geography.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any feedback?
This has all been very helpful, John. We've learned a lot.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it. Always interested in suggestions. I know many of you, well, all of you, just got your new impact factors. If there is consternation, celebration, puzzlement, please let us know, and we'll try and help you figure out what happened and why your impact factor went up, why your impact factor went down. We should be able to help you find that. If you're, sometimes it takes a really specific question, especially a really important specific question, like why did the impact factor go down by 15%, to motivate you to use a tool like this. Just call us and we'll help you figure it out. It's a good opportunity to learn about the tool and its abilities and its limits. So don't feel you have to do it yourself the first time. KJ and I can help with that. When one publisher contacted us last week, their impact factor had gone down by 2/3, and that's a disaster scenario. And when something like that happens, I can tell you it's usually pretty easy to find what happened. And in their case, it turned out that there were 2 articles that were generating 2/3 of their impact. And when those 2 articles aged out of the impact factor, it was just a disaster for them. And that was actually predictable because, I mean, just you could have predicted it literally 2 years ago that was going to happen. So that kind of thing is really easy. When it's a 5% change, it's definitely harder to see. But I worked with a publisher yesterday, and we think it's a combination of 2 things going on. That they are publishing more case reports, and those are not highly cited. That is, they're well below their typical impact. And they're publishing more supplements, and those supplements are not as highly cited. And it wasn't a night and day because it was only a 5% change. But because they're close to that magic number 5, the impact factor of 5, which is rumored, and maybe you've traveled pretty extensively in China, maybe you can confirm this. We've heard that if your impact goes below 5, Chinese authors are not given incentives to publish in your journal. Obviously, if your impact gets close to 5, this can be a real concern for a number of journals.
Yeah, no, this is very true. Very true about 5. But 10 is also the next magic number, and at least from what I know in China, authors actually get paid for publishing in journals over 10.
Wow. All right.
Paid by their institutions, no less.
Interesting. Well, that's a good concept. I know, but okay. Well, who knows what incentives are? I guess you could think in a way, the way we pay them here is we let them do new experiments in new labs and buy them new equipment.
Right.
I guess that's
true.
The same kind of thing. Well, thanks for confirming.
So,
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Well, are we saying, John, that we should get our authority files before we work with you?
Mm-hmm. I think that could be particularly important because one of the trends we've noticed, and it was the reason we put in the direct publishing tool late last year, is that more and more journals are doing front matter. It's a very good strategy. For one thing, it's interesting material. It brings users to the site. It expands the accessibility, if you will, of your content. And sometimes that front matter also gets cited. So sometimes they're good citations. But it can be important to verify that this front matter is not counting in your denominator. So that's
right.
A reason to get your authority file is to make sure that it's not hurting you to publish this additional front matter.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, good. Any other questions, comments, anyone? All right. Well, thank you again very much. We'll post these slides on the forum, in the Impact Vizor forum, so that everyone will have access to them. I really appreciate you all making time today for the webinar. Thanks again.
Well, thank you, John.
Bye.